We have with us Manaswini Das, who is an open source developer and an engineer at Red Hat. So today she is going to talk about dependency management using Git. So over to you, Manaswini.
Thanks, Shreya. Uh, Hi, everyone. Hello, world. Thank you so much for tuning in. Um, I'm Manishwini Das, and I'm an associate software engineer at Red Hat, as Shreya stated, and I'll be speaking about dependency management using Git. Let me just quickly share my screen. Okay, yeah, there you go. So, as I already stated, dependency management using Git. So first of all, before moving on to the topic, let us just quickly discuss about the requirements, like why do we need dependency management? Let me just walk you through some, real life scenario. Suppose you have a child project, or you can, I shouldn't be using the term child project, I can say. Suppose you have a project that you want to feed into multiple projects as a child project, and, make it possible for the parent project to build along with the child project. So what you do normally, like you keep it in a folder, then you just move the folder to the parent project like manually, and that's what I used to do before this as well. um, and that led to a lot of redundancy, lot of duplication, and then if you are going to feed the same child project to different parent projects, and then you had to go and edit in each and every parent project if you wanted to edit the child project or something. So that was becoming really difficult to edit as well. And the next thing is inability to build and test from bleeding edge checkouts. It is because suppose the child project, some iteration of the child project is able to build some iteration of the parent project. So it was difficult to remember as well that which particular iteration of child project is suitable for which particular iteration of parent project, and so on. So we all know that Git helps us to manage source code, and in order to help it manage dependencies, there was this new code sharing development workflow and an entire set of tools which were created just for this, so that that can make that can help making dependency management easier, and bridge the gap between Git repos and sub repos within it. So moving on, without much ado, jumping into the solution. What if we could put one project into another, and what if those child projects were Git projects themselves, and you could just feed them with the help of some simple commands using CLI, and then you were able to just push or pull changes on the go directly from the parent project. So for this, we have a set of tools available, which is provided by Git itself. They are known as Git submodules and Git subtrees. So cliched way is going by the terms. So this is a real life scenario of what we are going to talk about. This is a cherry tree growing on top of a mulberry tree. If you are into biology, you must be you must be knowing how this works in real life. But if you already know what a subtree is, it is a tree that is just a part of another bigger tree. So you can also understand it from the adjoining figure that's given. But if you're not able to just imagine imagine a cherry tree growing on top of a mulberry tree. So that will help you understand it. So the first tool that we are going to that I'm going to walk you through is Git submodules. Obviously, it helps us to nest Git repositories within another Git repository. And one more thing that we have to keep in mind while working with Git submodules is that it points to a specific commit reference to its child repository. So we will slowly come across it when I'm going to show you that demo that I have prepared. And the next thing is obviously, since I'd already discussed that ability to build and test from bleeding edge checkouts, it was one of the disadvantages. So if this tool doesn't provide that, then what's the use of it? So yeah, and one more thing is we can update specific submodules if we wish to. So you can also, just update all the submodules in one go, or you can, choose to update specific submodules, whatever you wish to. So demo time. Let me just show you one little project that I built using Git submodules. So this is the project. If in order to know whether a project contains a submodule or not, first thing that you can look for is the config file, that is the Git modules config file. So let me just quickly go there. So you can see there are three submodules right here. There is the submodule that's Cogito website wiki, and then there is the path, then there is a URL. So similarly, we have two other submodules. So similarly, we have three other folders right here. But you can also see that these are not regular folders. You can see that this looks some sort of a symbolic link. So we are here in the docs test repo, and you can also see that there is this @ followed by the commit hash. So this just shows, as mentioned earlier, it points to a specific commit reference of the child repository. So if I click on this, you can see that it leads to a different repo altogether. Similarly, like just reiterating what I said earlier, is that it is just a link. So yeah, this is how submodules look like on GitHub. So let me just quickly walk you through some commands that I used to do that. If you want to add a submodule, you can just do a simple git submodule add followed by the URL. So let me just quickly do that. There's a submodule getting created. Okay, so I had set up the same repo. Let me just quickly go through. Yeah, you can see that there is a new entry right here. There's this a module subtree docs test. There's this path, there is this URL, and there is this new folder that got created. And if you click on this, you can see the folder structure. And in order to see whether these are submodules or not, you can see this blue color S symbols right here if you're using VS Code. So yeah, this is how it looks, and this is how you can add a submodule to your project. So if you want to update a specific submodule, you can just do a simple command that goes like git submodule update remote followed by the path or the folder name. So if you want to just update the DMN path, I can do this using this and this command. And if you want to update all the submodules in one go, you can do a git submodule update. That's it. You needn't specify the remote. And if you want to delete a submodule, you can do it using this, because if you do it manually, it will still be there in the remotes. So you have to do a simple git rm -f followed by the path name or the folder name. So yeah, this is how you can work with submodules. So the next tool that we are going to discuss is Git subtree. So Git subtree was introduced in Git 1.7.11. It's written that it's an alternative. It's considered to be an alternative to Git submodules, but I don't consider it so because it has its specific use case. And the next thing is it also helps us to achieve the same thing, that is get nest one Git repository into another. And it offers clean integration points. That is, the whole child repository gets cloned as into a subfolder of the parent repository. So that makes it very easy to understand when you are a beginner. And the next thing is it helps us to inject dependency. And the next thing is it also helps us to extract project. So yeah, this is what Git subtree is. So demo time, let me just quickly walk you through one project I created using Git subtrees. So same as Git submodules. That is, if you want to know whether a project contains a Git subtree or not, you can go to the .git trees config file. But I would like to state here that the .git the Git subtree version with the .git tree config file is not something that's directly supported by the default Git package. So in order to get that, you have to go to the default Git repository and you have to install Git subtree using that. Otherwise, you can do it. You can use Git subtrees without that, but that will be mostly a local thing. And since since these sub trees, they look like regular folders, so it becomes really difficult to recognize whether this subtree or this is a normal subfolder or anything. So there's this Git Cogito wiki right here. Sorry, I just forgot to walk you through this. Yeah, there's this subtree, there's this URL path similar to what we had in the .git modules config file. And then we had this branch. This is new. So the next thing is we are in subtrees docs test. So we'll just click onto that. So you can see that it doesn't redirect to some other repo. It just stays there as a subfolder. So if you want to just get the git subtree with the .git trees config file, you can do it. I have attached the links in the upcoming slides. You can get your hands dirty using that. So let me just walk you through how you can add a git subtree. I have set up the same project right here. So yeah, this is the command that's called git subtree add prefix. Prefix is the path where you want to have that subtree. So I have given this path. Suppose this path doesn't exist, it creates the path for you. So you needn't worry about that. The next thing is the URL followed by the branch. So it is very necessary to provide the branch name, because the subtree is also a tree in itself. So if you don't provide the branch, it will get confused whether which tree it has to specifically merge with the child with the parent tree. So this is how you can add a subtree. Okay, sorry, but this is pretty much how it should be working. So since it has modifications, it is not, but you can add a subtree using this. And you needn't worry about committing the same, because git subtree add creates a commit for you itself. So the next thing is pulling from subtrees. So for that, you can use a single command. That's a git subtree pull all. And if you have changes in your child repository and you want to push to your child repositories in one go from the parent project itself, then you can use a git subtree push all. So yeah, this is how you can work with git subtrees. So I have the editor right here. Yeah. So I have this repo, and you can see it looks like a regular, regular folder, subfolder. So there is no S symbol or anything. So it is very, I would say it is very essential for you to have the git subtree, version with the .git trees config file. Moving on. So as stated earlier, these are some links. If you want to get your hands dirty, world is your oyster. You can just go ahead with that. And the next thing is talking about other applications and powers. That is, all the examples that I showed you were normally, they were normally child projects written with ASCII doctor. So that was something that I used to, do something with single sourcing documentation. So I tried the same using for another bigger project for managing project dependencies. So this is what I got. So you can see there is this .git trees config file. Then there are 3 subtrees. And yeah, so I added these 3 subtrees, and then I just ran a small Maven build, and it worked perfectly fine. So yeah, you can use this for dependency management. Mm. And again, walking you through the other applications is it eliminates redundancy, of course, the shortcoming that we talked about before this. And next thing is publish in various platforms like Gitbook. Suppose you want to single source documentation. Suppose you have a source, repo where you want, but you want it to be, rendered in Gitbook or rendered in GitHub pages. You can just feed it to the respective repos and get your stuff working. And the next thing is it makes maintenance easier, since everything is just with some few words on the CLI, and that makes your job easier. So next thing is the quintessential, like the very essential stuff I can talk about is Git submodules versus Git subtrees. It's very important to understand this, because uh, every tool has its own pros and cons, and you need to know which particular use case your project should serve, and so on. So I can say that Git submodule was harder for me when I was beginning. So if you don't understand the stuff, that it is a link to a commit reference and not an entire, repo altogether, so it becomes really difficult to, understand that when you are a beginner. And when it comes to Git subtree, since it clones the entire, just entirely clones the child repository into a subfolder of the parent repository, so it's very easier to understand. And one more thing is that you have to take care of is since it clones the entire repo, it also merges the entire commit history of the child project with the parent project. So I can show you this. Yeah. So you can see that I have a lot of contributors right here, but they haven't contributed to my project. They have contributed to this particular subfolder. That's the Cogito wiki. So yeah. So this shows that it merges the entire, commit history of the child project with the parent project. And the next thing is Git submodule requires the submodule to be accessible via a link, like via a server. So because it's just a symbolic link that just points, so it requires a module to be accessible in a server. And the next thing is when it comes to Git subtree, it's pretty much decentralized. It works independently, although you can push and pull changes from the parent project. And the next thing that you might have already guessed is Git submodule offers a smaller repository size because that's a link specifically. And the next thing is Git subtrees, they offer a bigger repository size because it merges and it entirely clones the child repository. So you have to take memory considerations, take into consideration memory and all if you want to take that into consideration, if that's a hard requirement. And the next thing is Git submodule can be used for component-based development. That is, you can update submodules one at a time, or you can, just do it all at once, whatever. But in case of Git subtree, it can be used for system-based development. So if you want to have a look at how submodules and subtrees, differ when it comes to commands, you can just click on this cheat sheet right here. So yeah, we know that everything has its own pros and cons, and everything has its own use cases. So this is something that I observed, and that is why I've just summarized it right here. That is, Git subtree, I would not consider it a direct replacement to Git submodule because uh, it has its specific use case. But I noticed certain things that may be helpful to you. That is, if you have an external repository that you own and you are likely to push code back to, then use Git submodule because I noticed that it's easier to push there. And if you have some third-party code that you're unlikely to push code back to, then you use Git subtree because it's very easier to pull. It's just a simple pull all command. So there are other alternatives that's available. There is Git slave. They might want to change the name right now owing to the Black Lives Matter stuff that's going on in the internet. It is a script that is for coordinated version control of large projects combining code from various child repositories or slave repositories as they state. And it's a wrapper around Git that manages multiple source code repositories and merges multiple source code repositories in one go, meaning that your Git command line will be able to control all child repositories from the parent repositories itself. So the next thing is Git repo. That is, it is a Python script that is built on top of Git to just extend the functionality of Git into dependency management. So it helps manage several Git repos, does the uploads of revision control systems and version control systems, and automates part of the development workflow. And the next thing is that I found really close to what subtree does is Git subrepo. It also does the same stuff, that is nests or clones the entire child repository into a parent repository and just enables us to push and pull code from the child repositories on the go. So there are multiple multi-package JS repos, similar stuff available for JS repos as well. There is Lerna, there is Bit. If you want to have a look at that, you can just access them through these links. I have also attached a reference for you. So yeah, that's it from my side. Hope this was helpful. And feel free to shoot your questions.
Thanks, Manaswini, for such an insightful talk. So we have some questions for you. So this is a kind of POC for you, right?
Yeah.
So how did you get the idea to do such kind of POC? Like what motivates you to do such thing? So you can stop screen sharing now.
Yeah, sure. I would say that that was something that I was given like during my internship at Red Hat. I didn't know such a stuff existed, but before that, I used to do the same that I mentioned earlier. That I used to keep it in a folder, and I just used to copy it from folder to folder, and I just made stuff difficult. But then I explored and I came across submodules, and then I came across subtrees. So I just tried to do stuff with that, and it worked fine. So I guess that worked for me. But and in general as well, I love exploring things and not just reading stuff but also implementing stuff and see how it works for myself. Like, yeah.
Okay. So what were the challenges you faced while doing such kind of a POC? So is there any challenges, or like sometimes you get frustrated while doing this? Is there anything like that?
Yeah, because when you just type git subtree, then there is just a GitHub documentation that pops up, and that doesn't really serve your purpose because it was very local. I told you that if you don't, I didn't. It took me some time to know that there is this git subtree with a .git config file similar to what I have with git submodules. Git submodules is available in the default git package itself, so it was not that difficult to figure out. But with in case of subtrees, it was. And when I found it, then it was like, okay, then this is something that can work on, for a code sharing development workflow as well. So yeah, that was some of the challenges because it was difficult to understand that stuff as well. As I mentioned that Git submodule is a commit reference. It's a link to a commit reference of the
Mhm.
child repository. So it was difficult to understand as well in the beginning at first. Yeah.
Okay, so is there any place where you would not recommend using subtrees and submodules?
I would say um, if you don't need dependencies in Git and it is something that's available via npm or something else, the packages or something else. So I guess you don't need Git subtrees for that because that's available via a simple npm package or some other package, Maven package, whatever.
Suppose there is a case, I have a parent project in which I don't change my dependencies. Like I have some dependency, I'm not going to change it regularly. So in that case, would you recommend using subtrees and submodules
Uh,
performance wise?
I don't think so because if you don't require it, you can just keep it as a normal folder. You don't need if there is no regular updates to the child project, then I don't think you require it because why would you just increase your troubles?
Yeah, you are right. So this is the last question from our side. So as you mentioned, there is a limitation of size in case of submodules, right? So
In case of subtrees, yeah,
subtrees. So
yeah.
is there any limitation of size in case of submodules also? Like you mentioned, we can use large repository in submodules, but what about, sorry, we can
Yeah, I
use,
got you. I got your question. I don't think there is some, repository size memory constraints when it comes to submodules because they are just links. They just look like folders, but they are not really folders. So that doesn't increase your repository size much. So I would say that if you are concerned about the repository size, then use Git submodules, not Git subtrees.
okay. So one more question. What are the alternative to this approach, especially for JavaScript or Node.js developers?
I haven't explored much, but I have read about Lerna and I have read about Bit. So you can use that if you want to and just learn more about it. But I have learned these two names, that's Lerna and Bit.
Okay. So yeah, thank you for such a insightful discussion, and I learned a lot about Git dependency management using Git. And thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Rhea. Thanks, Invite Developer Community for having me here.
Thank you so much.